Hey, what's going on, everybody? Chris Meaney here of FTN, taking a look at the top DFS plays for Week 9 of the NFL season over at FanDuel and DraftKings. And as you see here, up at the top of the board, I have, not breaking any news, Josh Allen against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't really have to spend a whole lot of time here, but I do think Josh Allen is worth every penny on DraftKings or FanDuel, wherever it is that you play DFS. You can play him naked, alone. You can play him with Stephon Diggs. You can even get a little Emmanuel Sanders in there because he put up a donut last week. He had 4 targets but 0 catches, but he played more snaps and ran more routes than anybody. I'm watching this Jacksonville team this season, and they're atrocious. They can't stop the pass. They're a mess on offense. They're 14.5-point dogs at home here. Josh Allen is going to get his. We just saw Geno Smith carve them up last week. So they are allowing the 5th most passing yards. They're dead last in pass DVOA defense. They've allowed the 3rd most passing plays of at least 20 yards. They're inside the top 10 in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, to wide receivers, and to tight ends. They are atrocious across the board. And I like Lamar Jackson against Minnesota. I think Kirk Cousins is honestly interesting on the other side of that game too. It is the 2nd highest total. In fact, it is the highest total now that Aaron Rodgers isn't playing. You got a total of 50 between Minnesota and Baltimore, but Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are safe quarterbacks. I think Tua Tagovailoa is interesting in tournaments against Houston. I think Tyrod Taylor on the other side of that game is also interesting in tournaments. I wish Devontae Parker was playing. I'm kind of coming off Tua now that we head into the weekend, and we're not going to see Parker as a member of Miami here this weekend. He has been placed on IR, but I think Tua is interesting. One quarterback that you don't see on this board, in fact, 2. Of course, I like to get nuts at the quarterback position, so I will play Jordan Love in at least one of my lineups, and I'll spend up at wide receiver, and I'll make it fit. I'll get Devontae Adams in there. I'll get Tyreek Hill. And as you see, I'd like Deebo Samuel, who leads the NFL in receiving yards per game. Everything just goes to Deebo. He was limited all week in practice, but that's been kind of the case for Deebo now over the past couple weeks. Limited, but looking like he will be good to go. And on the other side, it doesn't look like Kyler Murray or DeAndre Hopkins will be good to go. But as for, Joe Burrow and Jordan Love, I think both of these guys are worth shots. Maybe one lineup if you're playing more than 5 in tournaments with Jordan Love. And I don't love the pace between Cleveland and Cincinnati. Both teams play really slow. Cleveland likes to run the football. They're going to have success running the football. I like Nick Chubb as an underrated tournament play. He's very, very cheap. He was kind of disappointing last week. It was his first game back, and he still got a big chunk of the carries out of the backfield. Dearness Johnson really wasn't a factor, even though he had a touchdown. But Chubb is to the point where he's underpriced. He's a better play over at FanDuel. We get half a point for a catch, but he could fall into a couple catches here. I think this is going to be a statement game for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So even though I feel like it's going to be a slow-paced game, you watch Cleveland, they run the rock. They have these 10-play, 12-play drives that kill off so much clock. But I do believe that Joe Burrow, 2 touchdowns in every single game. He had at least 3 in each of his 2 games last season against the Browns. And I think that he is going to be able to chuck the football against Cleveland as well. So I do believe he is interesting, but also Nick Chubb from a tournament standpoint. But the backs there, Austin Eckler. If you want to get up to Alvin Kamara, Zeke, go ahead. They're pretty chalky. Eckler will be as well. I think he's certainly going to have his way against the Philadelphia Eagles. And Boston Scott's in a pretty good spot as well. The Chargers dead last, 159 rushing yards allowed per game. Number 1 in the NFL and dead last in rush DVOA defense, and the most runs of at least 20 yards and 5.1 yards per attempt on the ground. Also number 1 and inside the top 5 in fantasy points allowed to running backs. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers just had their way on offense and maybe we see a little bit more Kenneth Gainwell early on in this game. But I think Philly's going to try to establish the run against the Chargers. Los Angeles missing a couple corners as well. So I do believe Jalen Hurts could be interesting. You bring it back with maybe a Keenan Allen or an Austin Eckler in there. Maybe a Mike Williams. You will see some Darius Slay. Jared Cook's interesting. And then the tight end inside the same game, as you see, Dallas Goddard. I like him quite a bit. I've just liked the usage from Goddard over the past couple weeks. 32% of his team's air yards inside the top 3 over the last 2 weeks and a 30% target share. Last week, Jalen Hurts threw the football 14 times, 7 times to Dallas Goddard. And the Eagles defense have allowed 4 quarterbacks over the last 6 weeks to have an 80% completion rate against them. So Justin Herbert's in a get-right spot here with Keenan Allen, chucking balls out of the backfield to Austin Eckler, and Philly hasn't been able to stop the run. So that game is super interesting because the Chargers and the Eagles both inside the top 3 in terms of pace. They run at a quick pace. We could see a lot of throws. We could see a lot of offense from both sides. So Dallas Goddard, 142 yards over his last 2 weeks since Zach Ertz has been gone. He's just been used differently and getting targeted down the field as well. So he is super interesting to me. Other tight ends, if you wanted to go to Waller, if you wanted to go to Big O, because Noah Fant is not going to play here, or Mike Gesicki. Jalen Waddle's not on this board. I think he's a good cash game play. He's got over 30 targets in the last 3 weeks with Tua Tagovailoa, but with no Parker, we're going to see a lot of Mike Gesicki as well. And then Brandon Cooks on the other side. That could be a sneaky game, Houston and Miami. One more on this list that I didn't bring up is Hunter Renfro. For Hunter Renfro, of course, we know, unfortunately, the incident that happened with Henry Ruggs. He's no longer around. And Hunter Renfro has had at least 6 catches in 4 of his 7 games this season, and at least 5 in every game but 1. Where you attack the Giants is in the middle of the field. So Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro, not interested this week in Edwards, but moving forward, we may have to get involved with him. But as for a DFS standpoint here, just to wrap things up, I'm going to spend up at wide receiver. Alex Blickel and myself, we chatted on Friday, NFL DFS Live. You can go back and watch that video over at FTNDaily.com. And I liked his strategy, and I like it for myself as well. Maybe stealing it from him a little bit, just to spend up at the wide receiver position, higher ceilings when it comes to these wideouts, and try to find some mid-tier running backs. Maybe it is a Boston Scott. Maybe it's Kenneth Gainwell in multiple tournaments. Maybe it's a Myles Gaskin here this week. If these guys could get you any fantasy points, if you're fading Josh Allen and you go the route of potentially a Zach Moss, if one of these mid-tier running backs just finds the end zone, gets double-digit fantasy points, you're going to be able to cash. If your quarterback is set and it's right, and you got a safe floor quarterback with an Allen or a Lamar Jackson, or you take that shot with Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts for a bounce-back game, and then you spend up at wide receiver. Maybe Davante Adams isn't for you this week. I think, you could take some shots on him. He'll probably be low owned. Certainly if you play that one lineup with Jordan Love, you can have Davante Adams. But Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, 18 targets last week, and Stephon Diggs. These are wide receivers that I want to spend up for. I have no problem with Jamar Chase. I like Keenan Allen as well. But these are wide receivers that I'd like to spend up for this week. And maybe you just spend down at the running back position. And there's a lot of value at the tight end position as well. Another guy not on that list that I like is Dan Arnold. He's 5th among tight ends in targets over the last 4 weeks, and he's only played 3 games. He had double-digit targets and 8 catches last week, and we know the Jags are going to be playing from behind against the Bills. They're not going to have a lot of success running the football with Carlos Hyde, and I do believe Marvin Jones will be shut down in that game. So I think we'll see maybe another double-digit target showing from Dan Arnold, and he is certainly affordable over on FanDuel and DraftKings. We have a whole lot more over at FTNDaily.com. Our FTN NFL Optimizer is fantastic. Projections, ownership projections, ceilings, statistics. It's all there for you over at FTNDaily.com. Use that promo code MeanStreet. Save yourself a little bit of cash. If you're looking for more, though, check out FTNDaily.com, our Discord chat. A lot of action happening there as well. Leave a question if you have one, and I'll circle back before kickoff in this YouTube page. If you can smash that like button, greatly appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. Good luck this week, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.